When I was in college, I decided I wanted to be a teacher. As part of the program, my professor, Colleen, had me and another white female student, Haleh, chaperone a group of fourth, fifth, and sixth graders from a local charter school on a civil rights tour. Over spring break, we were going to go from St. Paul, Minnesota to Little Rock, Arkansas, Selma and Montgomery, Alabama. We were going to go to Huntsville, Mobile, Birmingham, Jackson, Atlanta, Memphis. If something significant happened in the civil rights movement, that's where we were going. I grew up in the Twin Cities. Life for people of color, for Black people in particular, is very different above the Mason Dixon line than below it. Race and racism are two different things in these parts of the United States, and I was, and still kind of am, scared of the South. Every single place we were going was terrifying to me. I was quaking in my actual boots at the idea of going to Mississippi. You ever see Mississippi burning? Yeah, you'd be scared too. Not only that, now I'm responsible for a bunch of kids. Terrified. Our first stop was Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, one of the first schools to integrate after the Brown versus Board of Education desegregation decision. Central was huge. It was closed for spring break, and even empty, it was frightening. Our voices were small and echoing down the halls. I couldn't imagine going to this place with hundreds of screaming parents, peers, state troopers telling me I didn't belong. We met Elizabeth Eckford, one of the Little Rock Nine, and she's a small, round woman with a close cropped afro. And when she spoke, her voice was small, like a child's. She didn't sound like someone who changed history so I could go to school with anyone. She sounded like a 15-year-old girl who had been traumatized, who'd been intimidated and yelled at and spit on and ushered by the National Guard just for wanting to go to school. The truth is, I don't remember what she said at all. While she was talking to the kids, I was trying to imagine what it must have been like for this little woman with that little voice to walk into this big, intimidating school, knowing everyone around her didn't want her there. She's also stronger than me. She did something I took for granted. My life is different as a result. We went to the National Voting Rights Museum and Institute in Selma next. And this building looks like a church, more like a church than a museum. And I remember thinking, this is the National Voting Rights Museum? How come nobody cares about it? So we go in and we sit down in this little room and it has a TV playing. And on the TV was black and white footage of a march that turned into a riot. It was part of the Eyes on the Prize, a PBS documentary on the civil rights movement that I used to watch in Februarys in high school for Black History Month. Our hosts are two sisters, Joanne and Linda Bland, and these ladies are committed to registering people to vote. Committed. They begin to tell us about Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday was the first attempt at the march from Selma to Montgomery. When the marchers attempted to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge, they were met with state troopers, horses, and batons. People were tear gassed, trampled with horses, beaten, and arrested while the whole world watched. John Lewis is famous for his injuries on Bloody Sunday. Ava DuVernay won an Oscar for her movie about it. The Bland sisters were 11 and 14 when they participated in Bloody Sunday. They're the same age as the kids that I'm chaperoning, and I can see them getting beaten on TV. Linda stops her talk, and she pulls her lip, and she shows me her teeth. And the top ones are missing on the left side. And I asked her, why don't you get them fixed? And she tells me, this is like my badge of courage. They knocked them out, and it's a reminder why I do what I do. I ain't ever getting them fixed. Here. And she grabs my hand and places it on top of her head. You can still feel where they hit me with that billy club. Feel it. And I do. And I can. We walk over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, singing and holding hands, and it was one of the hardest things I have ever done. I imagined the police on the other side of that rise waiting. I still imagine it now when I walk in my neighborhood, when I walk my dog, when I go places I have never been, waiting, terrified on what is on the other side of that rise. Of all the places on this tour, Birmingham was the scariest for me. Everything you've ever seen about the civil rights movement, the sit ins, the fire hoses, the dogs, the church bombings, these things all happened in Birmingham. One of the things you have to know about Birmingham is that during the civil rights movement, the city was comfortable targeting children. 16th Street Baptist Church, where those four little girls were murdered in a bombing, that happened here in Birmingham. This is not a place I thought I would ever be. And I was pleasantly surprised. Birmingham, Alabama has decided to be honest. They lean into their history, they embrace it, and they endeavor to do better. Downtown, there is the rebuilt 16th Street Baptist Church, and across the street from that is the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, and on another corner is Kelly Ingram Park, a place of revolution and reconciliation. The park is broken into quadrants with a concrete path making the cross. And there's a circular path that surrounds the cross, and if you look down at it from the top, the park would look like a compass. And if you walk on a circular path, you're walking through these big black metal sculptures that recreate in real life size the truth of the civil rights movement. I walked through the first, and it has two children turned against a black wall, and on the other side of the path is a fire hose, which works, spraying water against them. The next one shows two children standing on a plaque that reads, I ain't afraid, and on the other side of the path are jail cell bars. The third features these two big, thick, ominous black walls, and they line both sides of the path. And jumping from these walls are three police dogs. No matter how tall you are, a dog is leaping in your face, its fangs bared. I couldn't walk through that sculpture. Birmingham embraced who they were, who the country was, and they've endeavored to move forward towards reconciliation, towards being a more perfect union, towards being something better than we were. And it was the first time on this trip I felt hopeful. We saw more places. We went to Huntsville and Mobile and Atlanta and Jackson and Memphis. We toured museums and memorials. We saw the gunshots in the dorms of Jackson State University, the eternal flame in Dr. King's Memorial in Atlanta, the final resting place of Medgar Evers. And I was quiet on the way home, all the way home. I vote because democracy is not a spectator sport. There is a cost for the things we stand for and the things we stand against. It costs us something, some part of our humanity to stand by and watch inequality or watch injustice. Linda Bland told me the cost of her teeth, the knot on her head, was worth what we gained in giving everyone the right to vote. Elizabeth Eckford showed us that the cost of her peace of mind, her dignity, and her childhood was worth what we gained in integrating schools. The city of Birmingham told me that the cost of reconciliation is worth the humanity that we gained as a nation. I vote because I owe them, because so many of them before me paid a price so I could. My job, my responsibility is to make good on that investment, to use my vote and my voice to make the country a better place, to make us a better people, a more perfect union.